and then we're going to be open for questions. We're going to talk about Safran Risk, right? It's an introductory overview, and we have here in the call, and I will let you introduce yourself, Sam. So please, if you're there, or maybe you want to talk at the end, Hugo, please turn
Sure.
on your camera.
There's nothing that I could say that you wouldn't say. But yeah, we're both part of the Ferryfield group. I can't really give a better introduction than you're going to give. I'm looking forward to watching this,
Thank you, Sam. So Sam
and
is
I'll keep trying to admit people to the meeting. There we go, like that, so you can keep your
yes,
hands
thank you.
focused on the demo.
Thank you, Sam. Excellent. So Sam is a good friend and colleague at the Fairfield Group as well, who oversees also the Safran Risk product. Right. So what we're going to do today a little bit is talk about Safran. Safran, and this is what we agree. That's why we're here. It's a preferred software for project control professionals, right? To mostly it's because you have to you want to run your project hopefully on time and budget, right? Quality as well. And what we want to do is we want you to see what is it that and how is it that Safran is going to solve you a lot of problems that you would normally have in your projects, right? That's what we're going to do now. Who is the Ferryfield Group? So we're a company based out of London, and we are experts in QRA, quantitative risk analysis, and we are Safran's platinum partner. That means that we have some commercial responsibility in the Middle East, Europe, and LATAM. That's why Sam is here. And also, we are responsible for certifying fundamentals training. As a matter of fact, we have one fundamentals training next Monday, and we run these trainings every month. So we have one in December, we have one in January, etc. If you have any question, so Sam is going to put his email there on the chat. So Sam, whenever you have the chance, so people can ask you questions, so we can follow up if you have any interests on this, right? We're going to use two cases, right? Safran Risk is a tool that lets you work with P6 files. You will have a P6 file, and on top of the P6 file, you will be able to add uncertainty, and you will be able to have risk. So I will show you here the framework that we're going to work with, right? Here, we're going to show how to add uncertainties, meaning the natural oscillation of variables, right? And risk events, right? Typical risks that could have high impact, low probability. Right? So these types of additions to a model, we're going to see that today. Okay, now, besides the framework, the risk framework that we have, also we have a time framework. And this is, if you're in risk management, you will know this by memory, right? That we have a phase, which is the pre-mitigation phase, basically when you do your as-is, your first diagnosis of what is that you have with the risks, then you take mitigation actions, right? Meaning that you can accept the risk, derive it, right? Outsource it, mitigate it, reduce it. And then you have a post-mitigation. It's meaning that now you have a plan where you can take your risks from a pre-mitigated phase to a post-mitigated phase, right? And this is what we're going to do. Now, we're going to do first only with scheduling, right? Remember that this is cost or time, right? The first use case is going to be this with schedule. And the second one is going to be doing this with cost and schedule. Cost and schedule, right? This is what we're going to do. So it's very important for you to know that Safran Risk has these capabilities, right? You can have things with schedule, you can do things with cost and schedule, you can even do things only with cost if you like, right? So then there are many different capabilities that you have here. So I'm going to mute, the participants. Here you go. I think that Vincenzo had a little bit of noise, so I just had to mute him. Now, what we're going to do now, I'm going to explain the use cases. First, I'm going to import a P6 file and do some sensitivity analysis, basic sensitivity analysis. And then second portion of the demo is going to be opening an integrated cost and schedule risk analysis and running some of the reports that Safran Risk has. When you open Safran Risk is here. It's a tool that it's not on top of any other tool. It's a standalone tool that has a database inside your machine, right? That makes it really, really fast. Right? And what you do here, you will be able to import an external file. For example, here I will put a file here. It's a lot of people coming, so thank you, Sam, for that. Right, I'm going to use a file that it's called a drone file. This is a file that comes with Safran Risk. So I will read it. This is an XER file, right? I think in the new version of Safran Risk now, you can even import RRX files, which are risk register files from PRA, right? So you set up the planning units, will be on the days, hours, or minutes, right? So we've been recently training with a dear customer that for example, what they have a lot of calendars in minutes because of some tactical work or some, how is the nature of that, their work, and you can import this in minutes and you can change the format in minutes so you can see these types of work. You can have uncertainty here if you already have in your P6 calendar, you can have transfer all the information from your P6 calendar in terms of the minimum, most likely maximum duration, right, to the model. In this case, I don't want to do that, even though I have it. I don't want to do that because I want to add the uncertainties and risks that Safran Risk permits. Right? Then I will do next, right? This is sometimes some constraints are modified or sometimes your activities change, right? So this is something that Safran Risk does on the fly, meaning that it does it at the beginning of the review of the file, right? For example, here, this constraint was removed because the activity is in progress, and you will have a list here, and you can open that list as a file here. And you can have a log of all the changes that it did because it was required. And then when you press next, right, you will, I will rename the file, for example, drone 2. This is the demo 2024 1108. Right. So I save it. Now the project is no longer an XER file. The project is now in my database. So if I press close, this is going to open the project, right? So inside Safran Risk, we have an interface which is called Safran Project. Safran Project is a product also from Safran, which is this one here. And this was, as a matter of fact, the first product that Safran had, which was made available back 15 more or less years ago, where you have all of the different views, right? And all these options here. You see, it's like one application inside another application, right? And you have here data, you have different views, you have different layouts. For example, here I can import what came from Primavera. For example, here I can change it so you can see it like Primavera. You see it's exactly the same colors, etc. You can see some of the inputs. If you will have inputs like or a minimum, most likely a maximum that came from P6, etc. You will be able to look at them here. Right? You will be able also to have filters, if you like, for example, all the design tasks. So I can see all the design tasks. I have a complete manager for filters, right? Why? Because Safran Risk was thought for calendars with thousands of tasks, right? And right is on Wednesday, I was working with a client that had its average number of tasks is 12,000, 15,000, which is totally fine. They have all these filters. These filters can, if you have a central database, you can have these filters available for everybody, and everybody can go and select the same filters and work together, right? Without modifying the the master file if they don't need to. Things that you can do in Safran project once you open it. Remember, filters, layout, you can change the logic, right? So you can build links, unlink tasks, you can insert tasks, delete tasks if that's necessary, right? That's interesting that you can do that as well. And you can see, I don't know, calendars, if you like. If you have different calendars, we know that when you have big models, you have many different calendars too. You have export checks for the DB update, etc., etc. So you have a complete schedule viewer here, right? You can see the links or not, the critical tasks, right? You can do an overfit, a best fit here, the task. So there's a lot of options, and the visibility and the capabilities are really, really extended in Safran project, what we have here, which is just the first option. But what I like about the menu here, you see all these tabs, is that you have, what would you have, what would be the order of a life cycle analysis of a risk management life cycle analysis. First thing, of course, you have your schedule, right? Once you import your schedule, I will go to this at the end. Then you have your warnings, your schedule warnings. So what this does, it generates CDMA 14-like analysis with these options here. You see, for example, constraints to check. You have all these constraints checked, like as late as possible, finish on or after, must finish. If you have lags, and what's the accepted percentage, right? You can personalize all of this, right? And the relationships to check. So which are the relationships that you would check in a schedule, right? And you will tell every time. So this is more about the process, this interface for the warnings, because what you can say, well, the project start, of course, has no predecessor. That's totally fine. So you can say this is fine, right? Or any other message, and you accept it. So once you accept it, you see that now we only have 3 because this one is accepted. And here you can play a little bit with the filters. You can always export on imports, you see here. So these buttons, export and import, are going to be all around the application, and they permit having Safran Risk as an integration hub. You will have files from Excel, from XML, etc., that go back and forth, and it's really, really complete, right? So once you finish doing the scheduling warning, in here, as I said before, this is about the process. So some people and some teams would have a scheduling team, right? And what happens is that you see this, you send it back to the scheduling team send a new XDR, right? And then you do the risk management process, right? That will be first. Other teams, right? They are the scheduling team and they do risk management, so they can change automatically or manually all these, in this case, warnings in the schedule directly, and then they do the risk management. So they skip, let's say, the part where they have to send it back to the scheduling team and get new XCR. They can go directly here and then directly there to the risk management, right? So those are normally the 2 scenarios. Of course, there are flavors depending on the company and depending on the reviews. But the main idea, please remember, is that you will have some tasks, right? And these tasks will propagate the risk, right? And we're going to see that now. Remember that we're going to change from a world where we have things that are certain or deterministic, right, to a world where instead of saying these last 5 days, we can say, oh no, this can last from 4 to 8 days. This can last from 8 to 12, 10 to 15, etc. Right? So every one of them potentially can be distributions. And this is what we're going to do now. Now, if you have the correct predecessor and successor like this, right, the risk that starts here, it gets propagated all the way down, right? What happens when you have for example, a constraint that, for example, here you don't have a predecessor and a successor, right? What's going to happen here is that all the risk that was propagated and built along the way, right, for the previous 5 or 6 tasks or the previous 500 or 6,000 tasks is broken, right? So maybe you have a big distribution here, right? But now that you have a constraint or you don't have this connection, is going to be broken, and then you start all over again. So why you have this warnings, schedule warnings analysis, it's because of that, because we want your ship to be as well prepared as you can in terms of Monte Carlo simulation, in terms of propagating the risk and the uncertainty properly. Right? So this is the second portion of it. Right? So there's a process here. Remember, if you don't do this well, normally what happens is that the incentives and the way that when you approach your schedule is going to be very different because you didn't fix it at during the first time. Then we go to the project risks. And here in the project risks, we can add two things. We can add estimated uncertainties. Remember the framework, uncertainties, right? Or risk events, right? Events here. How do you do that? You can do it two ways. You can add them manually. For example, here I would say, risk 001, electric power outage. And because let's say we're in a remote site, or not very frequently, something like this. And we say, well, this is a risk. It's going to have a 40% probability. And this risk can have, and remember in the left side, we have the risk framework. In the right side, we have the time framework. Remember the one that I show you on the slide. So we can say, well, the schedule is going to be affected relatively, right? Because I don't care about the duration of the task. With a triangular distribution, I would say, no, let's go per distribution with 80, 100, and 140%. So whatever the duration of the tasks that are going to be impacted by this are going to have this impact. And this is the pre-mitigated one. What happens if, I don't know, we buy some redundant energy sources and some things like that? I would say, so if that happens, I will have a smaller impact, right? Because it's a post-mitigated probability that would be, and you see that automatically it copies you had before, right? And I would say it's going to be between 95, 100, and 110, let's say, like this. Right? And then you can define one and the other and the other. But Safran Risk has something that's called the global risk, which is a library, right? That you can share. You see that you can import or export. You can share with your colleagues, or you can share leave it sharing with your team, that everyone can import. So you don't have to develop all the things I'm doing now. And how it happens is a reference library. And what I can do, I can go to project risks and say, I want my high uncertainty, and I include into the project. I want my low uncertainty, including to the project. I want my medium, my low, like this. So now I have uncertainties here. You see that is another type, uncertainties. And then I will add a couple of risks, for example, I don't know, procurement delays and strategic direction change. Let's do another contractor liquidation, like this. See? So all of these have already been set up. I'm not going to go into the setup. Maybe I will do one other schedule impact here and reduce the impact. For example, here I have another one, but this one, for example, has a cost impact, right? The changing strategic directions. I don't want a cost impact, only schedule one. So I will do schedule one. And now I'll do, for example, something like this, right? And finally, this subcontractor liquidation. So you see that now what I did, I generated some pre and post scenarios like this, fictitious information, right, that I will apply to my calendar. So how is it that I do that? You see that now I have my uncertainties and my risks, right? My recommendation always here is keep the naming conventions with this that has a little bit of a name, and you will see why. So we go, remember, we started here in home. Now we saw the global risks. We go start with schedule, then the warnings. Then now we have the project risks that could be uncertainties and risk register. And also we have the timeline. Remember, pre and post mitigation. And now we're going to map it. And here the map it is one of the best things that this application has because it makes it so simple, right? So anything you see here, I have in my rows, I have the configuration of my tasks. Right? So I can do things like, for example, I can filter out all the design tasks like this. I have all the design tasks. Or if I like, I have all of them here. What I can do, of course, this is a demonstration, the things that you will have to have some workshops or work with your people, is that, for example, for the preliminaries, most likely they are going to be low uncertainty, the design is going to be high. See, fabrication is going to be medium, construction, let's say medium, testing high, on-site reconstruction, let's say it's going to be low, because I've done it many times. And this is it. When I click each one of these radio buttons, what happens is that they propagate. Yes, Indian, yes. We're going to share this at the end. Thank you for the question. When this happens, this will be propagated, right? And as this is going to be propagated, all the tasks inside each one of these work packages or inside of these phases are going to inherit that. So you have to be careful, because sometimes, as easy it is, what happens is that you start to over allocate uncertainty and over allocate risks, and this and the in this case the schedule is going to increase way too much. So this is the first step. I'm not going to do the risks yet. Why? Because you see how simple it is. You finish mapping this out, right? I just mapped again at the working package level. I go here to analyze, right? And I say, well, I have 1,000 iterations. I'm going to run the analysis. And you run the analysis, you run a Monte Carlo simulation, and here you go. You see how fast it is. So now you have a way of taking into consideration the first triangle, right? This was the first triangle of the output, which it was the finish date. And the finish date, it says it will go from March to August. See here, March to August. So what happens if you have a target date of, let's say, June 1st, 2025, right? So what will happen is if you have a target date of June 1st or June 5th, yeah, June 1st, this is going to be 59%. I'm sorry, I'm showing the other one. This one here, right? It's going to be 59%. This means that you have more or less 40% probability here, right, to the right, 41% exactly, and here you have 59%, which is not bad, right? You have 59% probability in your favor, right? Which is basically all this triangle here. Right? So remember that this triangle is always 100%. So the main idea is that how is it that you use it in your favor, right? Right now we have a good situation because we have 60% of the times that we run the simulation, the project is going to finalize before June 1st, which was the date that let's say we sold to our customer. What else you can do? You can say, well, what is it that I have to do now? What are my main drivers, right? What is driving the variability of the distribution? Right? And you have something here which is called drivers, right? And we will see after. And you can see the main tasks that affect, in this case, the finish date of the project, right? And this is done with a basic correlation analysis. We're going to come back to this, right? So let me go back to the distribution graphic. What else you can do? You can set up the duration as well. See, now you were talking days, not dates, but days. Right? And the cost, you have nothing because we don't have cost yet. We're going to add the cost in a minute. Right? Now, what is it that you can do here? You can add the risk. Remember that so far we just added the uncertainties, and the uncertainties, they give us from 600 to 750 days. So if we add the maps, if we map the risks, for example, here, the contractor liquidation, let's say here, this contractor could be the issue. Strategic direction, let's say in the design, right? This could happen during the design here and here. Procurement issues, procurement delays, maybe that's going to happen during the fabrication. So let's say that we have some delays here and there. And some electric power outage, let's say that it was only during the testing phase because this was going to be remote, right? So let's say here. you see that I have to go to the task level normally. Normally, I wouldn't recommend you to do risks to affect work packages. So as it is, you finish the mapping, you analyze it, and then you run the analysis. Like this. You see, now it changed. Why? Because it generated a big tail here. See, remember, now you have 25 additional days. It was 745, I guess. Now you have 775, right? You have a different finish date. So the target date that we used to have, June 1st, right? Now it's only 52%. So we lost 8% because of the risks, right? That's how you can measure this. What happens if you do it? I'm just going to do it once. If, for example, you say, I'm going to apply this to all the construction, or I can apply this to all the design, right? What's going to happen is that the risk impact is going to be multiplied. What you can see below, and this is something interesting here, you can see below is what we call the real-time analyzer. That's going to let you see all the distributions that affect the task here, and that they run automatically a single simulation for the task. So you know that with all these affections, how big this task could get. You see, from 45 days to 97 days. If I unclick this, you see, now it's only 74 days. So you're adding 20 days with this risk. So it's food for thought, right? Because there are a lot of things that you can do with the software, and it's super complete. I'm just showing you 10,000 foot view. Now that we added the mapping of the risk, remember that I changed it again, I run the analysis again, right? And now we have, you see, an even larger duration. See, we're talking about 829 days with just 2 clicks. So that's why we have to be very careful where and when we set up the risks to affect on the tasks, right? Now that we have the finish date and the duration, let's say in a complete model, what you can do, you can go and see the drivers, because now you have drivers for both the activities and the risks. You see, these are the main risks: the strategic direction, the procurement delays, the contractor liquidation. You see, these are the main risks that affect your project, right? The finish date and the activities that affect the finish date. This is a correlation analysis. There is something that is called sensitivity analysis that I'm going to run, the finish date and the duration. And what it does, it's an impact calculation based on what we call an exclusion analysis. That means that it takes, and I'm going to show you here, it takes all the risks. This is, for example, the 90 with all my risks, right? And it says, I want to take out my high uncertainty, the one that affects the most is 60 days. So if you take it out from the model, you see, the model finishes 60 days earlier. If I do that with my strategic direction change, the model finishes 11 days earlier, etc., etc. So it does it by what we call an exclusion algorithm. And what happens is that you will end up, right, having the tangible effect in the metrics. That means that in P90, the high uncertainty is responsible for 60 days. The strategic direction is responsible for 11 days, etc., etc. Right? So the main idea is that you have a way of taking a look to this, to the impact of each one of the risks and the uncertainty in a tangible way, not just with a correlation. See, the correlation, it could be a good start, but this is much better, right? So the good thing about the correlation, of course, is that it is immediate. Sometimes you have a model that takes, I don't know, 30, 45 seconds because you have 25,000 tasks, right? And then it gets really interesting, right? When you get all this information together. Now, thing that you can do, there's what we call here a cost model right here, where you can add your own costs, right? Let me import from Excel. And I'm going to, let me see here. Give me just 1 second. 1 second. I'm going to use a cost breakdown structure. So what I did, I created a complete cost breakdown structure here. You see, that you can link to the model or not. That's the thing. That's an independent cost model structure, right? That has distributions, you see. We can share the same risks. For example, here in the initial points, I can come here. Why is it that you don't have any costs here? Because no one of my project risks has any cost impact. So if I change it, and that's why I did it on purpose, for example, here, I would say I have a cost impact here and there. And we'll do it for the subcontractor liquidation as well. Let's say that I change this to a per distribution. You have like 10 distributions to choose from. Right? Let's say here in the cost impact, 95, 110, 105, right? Like this, right? So if I now have some risks that could affect the cost, so I can come here and choose from here, right? And I say, yes, I want this risk to be added here and this risk to be added here. So what happens is that now you have a complete cost analysis, and this is mostly the case for the people who run the model without resource loading it, right? Which, let me see your question. To generate the jump probability. Oh, here you go. I'm going to go with that, Vincenzo. That's perfect. Good question. So what I'm doing is adding to the schedule model that we have, right? I'm adding cost model here, right? And I can join it or not, because, for example, here we have the risk register or the risk, the project risks, risk of project, right? And we are using it and sharing that database. And what I can even do to improve the how the cost is going to be streamlined during my budget is even I can link it to some activities. But of course, this is not the replacement of resource loading it. So one idea that we always have is that perhaps you can do a level 2, level 3 report without resource loading it in P6, and then you can add this cost breakdown structure. This cost breakdown structure is very easy to import from Excel, right? So now what I can do, now I have a complete model, right? So I go to analyze, run the analysis, and you will see what happens. Now you have this, of course, but if you like, now you have cost, right? And this cost comes from here, right? So it's, I don't know, 1.2 million more or less, right? And I can add risks and I can add the activities to know where the cost is going to happen, is at the beginning or at the end of the activity. Now, as Vincenzo was saying, I can run the JCL analysis, this scatter plot analysis, but I'm going to run at least 2,000 iterations. Why? Because it's just for the definition of the graphic, right? You see that it takes 2 or 3 seconds, right? But now, what I can do is, first of all, I can go to my drivers. My drivers, remember, they drive the finish date of the project, but also I can check which are the drivers, you see here, driving the cost of the project here. So these are the manufacturing certifications, fabrication, support from GPS, training, etc. You see? So now I have another dimension here. And what I have in my left pane is no longer the Gantt chart, but the structure that I imported in my costs. You see? That's perfect. Oh, so Vincenzo, I think, well, I call the real-time analyzer here, that is 1,000 iterations. It does it automatically. So you don't have control over that, but it's 1,000 iterations. So thank you for that. Yeah. Now that I have my sensitivity analysis, I'm sorry, my drivers here for cost, I can run this for sensitivity analysis as well, right? And I can say, I want my costs to be included, right, for the complete project, and you will see what happens. So I run the analysis. And now what I can say is that, for example, well, the high uncertainty is responsible for 58 days, but my strategic direction change is responsible for 12 days and 847, let's say, thousand. Or the contractor liquidation is responsible for 1 day and 795,000. Right? So you have a combination of costs and time that you didn't have before, right? So that's something that you didn't have, and now we have as a dimension, right? So this tornado chart, now it's showing you which are the main variables regarding risk, on schedule, and regarding cost in the project, right? Things that you can do that now that I have cost, I can do. One is the scatter plot, right? So this is scatter plot here, what it shows, and I'm going to show first the values and then the JCL bands, right? First of all, what I can do, you see here that my result type, I'll put duration here. Now I have duration in my x-axis and the cost in my y-axis. So the duration, I can say it's going to be 675 days. Right? So it moves the crosshairs. Right? And let's say that my cost is going to be, let's say my reference cost, right? 1.2 million. So one thing that you can do now with this JCL analysis, you can say, well, what is the probability for me or for the project, right, being below 1.2 million and 675 days, which is basically this, right? And this will be 9%. Right? What is the probability of having a project that finishes in 675 days, right? Regardless of the cost, is going to be 9%, right? Plus 23%. So it's like 32%. It's going to be the probability for the project in less than 675 days, regardless of the cost. What's going to be the probability of the project having a cost greater than 1.2 million? You see, these two. So that will be 50 plus 23. That will be 73%. You see? So you can do this type of analysis. Right? And this is something that you gain. That's lots of a gain that you have when you add these types of analysis, because now you have cost. And if you like, you can do what we call a JCL bands analysis, because you see that here you calculate you put the boundaries and then you calculate the probability. But sometimes people would say, look, I want to have my probabilities and then you give me the boundaries, right? So for example, I can say, well, what are the solutions that you have for my JCL 78 to 80%? So you see that here you have this little boundary for that, right? Like this, right? Like this. So all these solutions in this area are the ones that comply with that and have a 75-80% probability of being available, right, of happening. Right? If you want to be, let's say, with the 50-75%, so you have this cloud of points here, right, like this, like this. So these are going to be the solution. So you can have a solution, for example, that like this, you have 62%, in which is 695 days, because I'm giving more priority for the dates, but I don't mind about the money, right? 1.332. But if I like, I can go to the other end and say, well, I take 70, almost 800 days, but the cost is like 200,000 less, right? So you can combine, and you see in your preferences curve that you have there, what is it that you prefer, right? You prefer to maybe spend less money and wait more time, or vice versa. And this is something that you can only do when you have this use case two. Remember that we were going to see two use cases, so this is case number two. Now, what else do you have now that you have the ability to have costs? We have something that's called the probabilistic cash flow. And what the probabilistic cash flow does, I show you here with cost, right? It lets you see what is the S curve, my S curve. Example here, right, during my timeline. Example there, right? So you can see it. Let me see if we have more like this. Right? So in this case, I didn't put a lot of attention to the date where I was going to have it, but basically what you have, we'll see here, right, in the data view, are the different times where you can see this, right? The different times where you can see this, and how much you will have to put, or how much you will have to have um, in your treasury, let's say, to make front to pay for the things that you would need. Of course, that you will be able to do this if I will change the when my costs are going to occur, right? For example, here, and this is why I normally show it, for example, the training trips. The training trips are going to be linked to a task. So whichever the dates for the task, this is going to occur here, or I can do that there as well, right? Let's say, I don't know, in the design, I have that. So this is going to be reflected in the probabilistic cash flow. So now you have that. Finally, what I wanted to show you is the capability of building scenarios. So let me show it to you. When you build scenarios, what you can do, you can say, I want to see what happens only with the uncertainty, right? So you uncheck, you untick all the risks, right? And you just stay with the uncertainty, run the model, and then you run the model, and let's say that you want to see the duration, right? So you take the duration and you send it for comparison, right? So then you have your duration, no risks. Now, what happens if I go to analyze again and say, now I want to check it against my, remember, you have two dimensions here. You have the pre-mitigation or the post-mitigation. So I'll say, let's add it with the pre-mitigation. I run the analysis, and now you got how easy it is. And then you send it to comparison, like this. So this is my duration, risks, pre-mitigated, like this, you see? Now you have like, I don't know, 16 days of difference when you are in, I think, P90. If you choose P80, it will be 10 days of difference. So this is the amount of time that you gain, or well, in this time, you lose when you have it. And just as out of curiosity, what happens if I change for the risks, for some of the risks to be post? Right? Let's see if the post mitigation that I wanted to apply, it had or not some type of impact. So you can send that to comparison as well, and then you see here. You see? So in this case, yeah, they had a really good impact there. So this is going to be duration, risks, post mitigate, right? And then you can continue doing that, right? As many times as you need. Things that you will have in the application, you have, for example, the ability to run automatic reports here. I'm not going to run it, but you have all these different elements that are going to be automatically generated. Remember that you can change the distribution graphic for anything that you have here, cost, duration, right? And the one that you have there. The drivers you can apply, remember, to cost, to the activities here, you see. So you have many different dimensions. So you see that the interface has many different tabs or selectors here, and that's what we always rescue from Safran Risk, that it's super complete, and you just have to know how to navigate. So that's the good thing of having this recorded, because of course, if this is the first time you see it, you see, well, how many options you have, right? But the idea, the main idea, and this is what I wanted to show today. I have a presentation with all the things that I've done here, which is very complete. So I will send it to you. I will send it to you. Which is that with Safran Risk, you can easily generate analysis that include, remember here, uncertainty, that you can include risk events, and you can include pre and post mitigation dimensions, right? It is if you talk as a timeline, right? And also you can include the cost dimension. And with the cost dimension, you have the same additional components. You can have uncertainty, and you can have risk as well. Right? And you can even locate the cost whenever you want, right? And you have there, right? So how is it, Safran, better? Can you explore the risk simulated schedule? Oh yeah, back to the XER, yes. So what you can do, for example, here, you can change for example, here, the risk output, like this. You see? now I have my risk output. You see, I have my P50 star finish, 80, P80, etc. Right? And you can do what you go here to file, export, and you export the project as an XER, right? Like this. So this is to answer Shimon Kepa question. And also, how is it better? So what I will send you, and let me do a note. Let me send you a note here, because what I have is there's in the website, in the Safran's website, and I will show it to you. Right, the website is safran.com. Right, and in the website I will show it to you. There's a really good paper, or a set of paper, because they are like 5 or 6. I will show it to you here, right? And I will share it in the chat. Right? It's a set of 6 different articles, or 7 different articles. You see, why is it better? Because of the technology. You see, the technology that we use is much better. The user interface is way better. How is the cost and schedule risk analysis? The analysis by exclusion that we showed, how the risk uncertainty is calculated. Correlation that we didn't have the time to see, but we're going to do a webinar on that. Right? And the mitigation analysis, why is it that it's way better, right? And you have that, it's totally free, so you can just take a look to it. Like, you don't need even to register, you see, it's here. So I think that will answer the questions. Can a trial of Safran be downloaded? I think so. I think that you can have a 15-day trial here. Let me see our product. You have Safran Risk. You have well, the video series. If you want to have more videos about that, there's a lot of information there. And if I'm not mistaken, you can here. You see this request 30-day trial. You can have it there. So let me share the link. Here you go. Or you can always contact Sam here in case you need all of these things, right? That are going to. So you see, it's a really fun application. I really like it because it's fast, it's responsive. You see, it's not buggy. You don't have it doesn't fall, it doesn't break. So it's really a good application, right? Yes, the risk drivers and sensitivity are really excellent. Excellent. Probabilistic, and yes, the probabilistic branching is here if you like to run it. And one thing that I will show it to you. It's for Shimon Kepad. It's who's making these questions. If you go here to what we call the burger menu, you will have the user guide. Right? The user guide is very well written. Right? It's only like 250 pages, so it's not like this one that have like 700 pages. And if you find something like, I don't know, probabilistic branching, which is something that I was, for example, here, probabilistic branching, I think that here. So see, it's normally like a demo. It says you have to do this here and there. In our case, when you have the risk mapping here, right, you choose one of the risks, if I'm not mistaken. Right? And here you have the potential to do probabilistic branching. So you just have to create a probabilistic, etc. Right? So you can create this probabilistic branch. I don't have the model yet prepared for that, but I will definitely include it. And if you write me an email, I can definitely generate a quick video about that and post it in our YouTube page, where we have a few of these Safran Risk demos. So yes, you can do probabilistic branching. And one thing that perhaps we didn't have the time to show, which are the risk calendars, right? So, for example, here you can have a calendar where you have windows of downtime. Right? So it's a really fun and different way of doing that. It's really easy, right? So you can set up calendars where you have downtime depending on, I don't know, plan. Sometimes weather windows, or you have issues with, you know, amount of or the logistics, that when you have to take a look to that. So my recommendation, as Vincenzo said, please, I mean, have a trial, take a look to it, contact us. We'll be happy to share, to have a you know, a personalized demo if you need it. So the tool, it's really, really better than the others that you might be using. Right? Any other question? Any other question that that you might have? So if not, I really thank you guys, because I know it's a Friday, and the vast majority of you were included. So my offering is send you the recording. We will publish it anyways in our YouTube page, and I'm going to also send you the PDF with the information. So thanks again. To use multiple calendar schedule, yes. You can use it from two ways, Prashant. You can use it here, schedule here in data, calendars. Right? You can use multiple calendars there. Some teams work on weekends, some exactly. So yes, you can put that here, and if you like, you can say, well, what is my calendar, right? And you can change the calendar for your. See, see. Yeah, but you can add a different calendar for your tasks, so you can do that. Yes. Excellent. Thank you, Will, Leanne. I know that you guys just registered yesterday, so hopefully it was helpful. Very happy to answer questions. Me and Sam, more than happy to do it. Okay. So you enjoy your weekend, and we'll be in touch. We'll
Thank you very
be
much for
sharing the
attending.
presentation. Thank
Have
you,
a lovely
Sam.
weekend.
Take care. Bye-bye.